Alright, today I'm going to be talking about some of my biggest tips and advice that I can give to people new to FF14, coming directly from someone in a very similar position as you. As I said in my last video, the main reason why I wanted to make this one is because I find that a lot of the time, the advice that veteran players can give will be hit or miss. I think this has a lot to do with them just not being able to fully understand and remember what it's really like to be brand new to the game. MMOs are such vast and complicated games with so many little intricacies involved with them that once you get accustomed to them, it can be difficult to remember what it was like to be completely lost and confused. Again, MMOs are extremely complex games and it will take a while for you to fully understand anything about them. If you're coming from another MMO, most likely WoW, then you will have a head start on most new players, just like I did coming from WoW. However, FF14, of course, is still not WoW, and there are tons of differences between these two games. There is no rush to the end game, especially if you're just starting out mid-tier or mid-expansion. Other than the relic weapons, which are very grindy no matter what, FF14's endgame progression is very fair, and it won't take you long to get close to an item level high enough to run the high-end content. There are a ton of jobs in this game, and it's worth it to take your time and try out any that interest you. That endgame content will still be there when you get to it, and even if it isn't the most current tier, there will still likely be a decent amount of people still doing it for glamour or mounts. If you are in that mindset of going as fast as you absolutely can at all times, because if you don't, you'll end up being super far behind and never able to catch up, which is super likely if you are coming from WoW. I understand. As someone who had to learn to take it slower, that can be hard to get out of that mindset, but it's absolutely in your best interest to do so. My favorite class in Final Fantasy XIV is Astrologian, and if I didn't slow down and take my time, I never would have given a chance as early as I did to it. I would have just stayed White Mage and flew to 80, then having to go back to do Astro and ultimately finding out how much I enjoyed it weeks, maybe even a solid month later. I also chose to level through Stormblood as a Gunbreaker, which was a lot of fun and gave me a good appreciation for the Gunbreaker job, which is something else that I wouldn't have happened if I kept that gotta go fast mentality. Some of the zones in this game are very pretty, and a bunch of the characters you meet in the main story quests are fascinating, and if you just fly through it all to get to the current raid, you'll miss out on some of it and not really get to take it all in your first time through. One extra tip on how to get out of that mentality of going fast and actually slowing down would be to not second guess yourself. If you're going through and you see someone playing a job that interests you and you have access to that job, go give it a try, see if you like it. If you don't, then, oh well, but you tried it out and now you know. Because of how the leveling experience of Final Fantasy XIV is structured, which I've talked about in another video, you are going to be spending a considerable amount of time at level 50, 60, 70, and of course with 80 being the max right now, 80 as well. Each of these level ranges can be a great time to level up other jobs than your first one and give them a go around while you very, very slowly make your way through the patch content. All in all, remember to relax, go at your own reasonable pace, and experience as much of the game as you can. The community of Final Fantasy XIV is very nice and accepting. Of course, there are toxic people and you might encounter them every now and again, as all online communities absolutely have their fair share of toxicity, but Final Fantasy XIV is probably the nicest, most accepting, and genuinely helpful community of any game that I personally have ever played. This is, of course, a very good thing as a new player, and something you should absolutely try and take advantage of. Be kind, respectful, and honest with the people you encounter, and there is a decent chance that they won't mind helping you out in some way. This tip has a few subcategories that I'm going to talk about. The first one being, do not be afraid to ask questions. Even if you've asked 1,000 already, don't be afraid to ask more. You might think you're being annoying, and maybe you are, but it's better to ask questions than make your group wipe because you didn't, which will generally make people more annoyed or angry than if you just ask questions beforehand. If the questions aren't related to specific fights or mechanics and are more general questions about the game or specific types of content, don't be afraid to ask those either. If you queue a dungeon, a trial, or a raid and think of a question, ask it. There's a decent chance someone in your group will have an answer for you. For some people, this was a guarantee as soon as you started playing, but for others, it's something you weren't even considering at all as a possibility. I'm very socially awkward, and I get anxiety whenever I'm in a social situation, whether it be physical or through a video game, Discord, anything like that. So I totally understand how it might be something not very appealing to many people, but hear me out. I played WoW for years, but spent maybe less than 10% of that time in a guild or actively talking and interacting with the people in a guild if I was in one. It takes me a long time to warm up with people and be able to actually talk to them like a normal person, and for voice chat it takes way longer. I've been in the FC I'm currently in for over a month now, and I still don't talk to them in voice chat, only in the FC text chat. I've probably asked 10 million questions in my FC chat, and I still ask questions every now and again to this day. While you might encounter some toxic people while queuing for dungeons, trials, or raids, if you join an FC, there's a good chance you won't experience much toxicity, if any at all, because most FCs are tight-knit communities that value a sense of camaraderie. And if you join an FC that does have toxicity in it, just leave and look for a new one. I'm sure every server has at least a few nice ones for you to be able to join. I got into the FC that I'm currently in after queuing Palace of the Dead and getting matched with two nice people who ran an FC and asked if I'd like to join. It may take a few tries, but you keep looking and you should find a nice FC that you like being in, and that'll make it way easier to find groups for high-end content when you get there, groups for the leveling roulettes, which are always more fun with people you know, and will generally give you a better, more helpful environment to grow and learn as a new player. If you're new to the game and haven't joined an FC, there is a good chance you are unaware of The Balance. The Balance is a community Discord server where you'll find things like guides for each job, bested slot builds for each job on the most current patch, resources on how to improve, and other random things like that, as well as text channels to talk to people with. When you reach the end game and want to really learn and understand your favorite jobs more, and want to see which gear you should be going for and spending your hard-earned tombstones on, The Balance is the best place to do that. The official Discord server as well, it's the official Discord server. If you want a quick and easy way to interact with the community and sometimes the devs, rant about what you dislike, within reason of course, or even have certain things that devs say or show translated to English, then this is a server definitely worth joining. Each of these Discord servers have their own benefits, and in my opinion, both are worth joining even if you don't really want to talk to people. I haven't said a word in either of them, but having access to the different resources within them makes it worth it on their own. I'll have a link in the description to both servers if you decide you want to join. Obviously, like I said, you should ask questions, but sometimes it is just easier to Google something. For example, ether currents. If you want to fly in any non-A Realm Reborn zone, you are going to have to get the 10 ether currents that are scattered around that zone. If you like exploring the zone, then I suggest giving it a go around to look for them on your own, but if you fail to find them all, or don't like just somewhat mindlessly running around zones and just want to get them quickly, you can look it up. If you want to track your progress through certain things like the main story quests or the relic weapon chain, you can look that up. There are a few different online databases for FF14. None of them are really all that great, to be honest. If you're coming from WoW and used to Wowhead, unfortunately, FF14 doesn't really have a resource nearly as useful as Wowhead, because what makes Wowhead so great is the community commenting on random things within Wowhead's database, but most of the databases for Final Fantasy XIV don't have comments on them. They are most useful for seeing definitive things like the sequence of quest chains or the unlock requirements for a specific raid or dungeon or job. I've been using an article on Polygon for tracking the relic weapon progress I've made. There is a lot of content in this game. There are thousands of quests, dozens of raids, trials, dungeons, and jobs. There's just so much to do, and it can be hard to decide what you should do or what exactly you're supposed to be doing, and it can be overwhelming, so sometimes just taking a second to tab out and Google something can be very helpful and save you somewhat wasted time from wandering around aimlessly or waiting for someone to respond to a question you could just simply look up. Now obviously if you already bought the game, this one doesn't apply to you, but if you are still on the free trial, take full advantage of it. It's very generous, all things considered. There are a few dumb restrictions when being on a trial account, like not being able to invite people to parties, but you can still join parties if someone who isn't on a trial account invites you. You get access to so much content, and I believe you can play all the way through the main story quest of Heavensward, which is insane. Being able to play through the first expansion in the free trial might not seem like a lot, but if you go at a slow, casual pace, then 60 levels of content across a bunch of different jobs can be months worth of content, and should be way more than enough for you to know if this game is really for you or not. When I got into the game a couple months ago, I grinded like crazy, playing at least 8 to 10 hours a day almost every day, and it took me probably at least 3 to 4 weeks to get through Heavensward, while experimenting with different jobs along the way. The free trial is great and definitely gives you enough to do to understand whether or not the game's for you, so you should definitely take advantage of it if the game is still something that you're on the fence of really committing to. So, there are a few tips for new players coming from a new player. I hope you found at least some of this useful. Each of these things I've mentioned have helped improve my experience with the game and enjoy it a lot more. If you're interested, I will likely be starting to stream on Twitch in about a week or two from now at twitch.tv/hopelessbean. The link will be in the description if you want to drop a follow and come hang out when I get that all set up and ready to go. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.